To other news, this morning the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, will be travelling back to Ottawa after a high-stakes meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. But Carney leaving Washington without a deal to ease the pressure caused by U.S. tariffs. CTV's Michael Couture has more on what the leaders discussed and the work that's still being done.
U.S. President Donald Trump said the Canadian delegation would be leaving D.C., quote, very happy. However, Mark Carney and his team are heading back home without any kind of deal that will see any kind of relief from those punishing tariffs on a number of Canadian goods. Now, Trade Minister for Canada and the U.S., Dominic LeBlanc, is staying in D.C. for the coming days to try and continue the work on that file and to see if there is any path towards some kind of relief. LeBlanc telling reporters yesterday that both the President and the Prime Minister are charging their teams with getting to work and trying to hammer out some sort of a deal and understand that they will try and get, quote, a greater certainty in areas where the principal areas would be steel, aluminum, and energy. Now, we expect that some of that work also continued last night in a working dinner between U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Prime Minister Mark Carney. Carney did mention inside the Oval Office that Canada is one of the largest investors in the U.S. economy, saying it's totaled $500 billion in the last 5 years. And he says that could double in the next 5 years. Still, one of the biggest issues, as mentioned by Trump yesterday, is he said that the two countries are in a natural business conflict because they want to make the same things, such as cars and trucks, and that could be something that could be difficult to overcome. Now, the lack of a deal for the Prime Minister will likely dog him as he heads back to Ottawa, and he will face some very tough questions in question period from the opposition parties, who had expected Carney to come away from this meeting with some kind of a win. Michael Couture, CTV News, Washington.
Julian Karaguesian, former special advisor at the Ministry of Finance, joins us now. Julian, good morning. The Prime Minister returning today. How unusual is it for a Prime Minister to go to the White House, second visit in as many months, and return with nothing that we know of?
It's actually unusual, but given the circumstances of the threat we're facing to our economic model is based in large part on selling a lot of stuff to the big neighbor next door. Given the nature of the threat, I think under these circumstances, it's normal to have regular visits. Unfortunately, nothing could be secured on this visit, and maybe that wasn't very surprising, actually.
Okay. Now, we know that Dominic LeBlanc is still there, furthering Canada's case. Is it anyone's guess now when or what kind of a deal we will get, especially after him saying last evening that he is optimistic, but optimistic based on what, you think?
Well, I think if we think about a free trade zone like NAFTA or its successor, CUSMA, as a zone of no tariffs, I don't think it's sensible to be optimistic about going back to that. I don't think there's any going back to that in the current circumstances. I don't see a Democratic Party running against the Republicans in a couple of years, in 3 years, on a free trade ticket. So optimistic that perhaps we can get a deal like the United Kingdom secured, where there's a low base tariff of 10% and some kind of deal on automobiles. But I think one area or two areas where the Trump administration is going to keep digging their heels in, I don't think they're going to relent, is on automobiles and on steel. I do think we can get something on aluminum because the Americans don't really make a lot of aluminum.
Yeah, I mean, we heard the president yesterday speak of how there is a conflict. The Prime Minister, of course, correcting him, not really a conflict, but the two nations compete with each other. But let me talk to you about what else the president has said. We know that the president is talking about further tariffs, for example, medium, heavy-duty trucks. How do you think that this government can navigate through all of these tariff threats looking forward?
Well, it's going to be difficult because the one thing that President Trump has been consistent on before he was president, going right back to the 80s and since his first term, is that any car sold in the United States without a tariff must be produced in the United States. Any other vehicle coming in is going to face a tariff. So it's going to be very difficult to navigate the entire automotive sector. So we saw that the United Kingdom, a very, very close ally of the United States, was able to secure something called the tariff quota rate, where they have 100,000 vehicles coming in at a 10% tariff. And then any vehicle after that, any automobile after that is subject to a 27.5% tariff. Hopefully, given the integration of the North American automotive system and production, Prime Minister Carney can secure a better deal than the UK, but it's going to be difficult. This is the automotive and steel are the essence of what Trump is trying to do in America, which is bring manufacturing and jobs back.
Julian Karaguesian, appreciate your time and your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you, Akshay. Thank you very much.